definitely think that there's a gender gap within the core. I think you can see it sometimes in classrooms where, like, uh, first of all, I mean, you walk into a classroom and you'll be like one of like three girls max usually. And then, but within that, I remember like I've had teachers in the past that I thought like graded differently with some of the guys and the girls in the class. And like I remember one time I got like an F on a paper, but I wrote a better paper than like one of my male classmates. Or at least I thought it was better, and I like showed it to like an upperclassman the on the lacrosse team, and she said that she had him before and that he had like a reputation for being like unfair when it came to grades and different genders. And then
at West Point, honestly, if I were to see a gender gap, I could see how it would actually be kind of like more favorable towards the female side in a way. Because like guys just like, for example, with corrections, like guys don't know like the standards for like female hair or like nails or anything like that in general. And even if they do, it's not like something that a guy would be comfortable like correcting a female with. So like I don't think like I've never seen a guy correct a female for something, even if her uniform is like messed up, unless it's an officer who's not worried about that. But I've never seen a male cadet correct like another female cadet. I've been in classes where like male instructors are just nicer and like better to female cadets. So like honestly, I don't think there's like a big difference in like male and female cadets, so like there isn't really like a gender gap, but I think that like females are offered certain benefits in a way of being a female here.
I think you could say that there is a gender gap like at West Point and in the Army. I think it's mostly just because there's like obvious biological differences like in strength and like body type and like size and things like that. So I think there definitely is like a gap, but I don't think it really affects people in a super negative way. I think like we're still able to all work together and like understand our differences, and I think if anything that like makes us stronger. But I definitely do think there is like a little bit of a gap, but I don't think it's anything we can't fix and like come together.
Test.
Yes, I do. Well, I don't know what's going on with it right now, but I think the initial like attempt at it kind of had the right idea, because personally I don't think anything can be, there's a difference between like equality and whatever they're trying to do with it now. Like to me, equality is like everyone takes the same thing, and then depending on how you do on it is how you can be placed. So like if we all take the same test off of the same standard, and that standard is you can be in combat arms or you can't be in combat arms, that's not like discriminating based on gender. That's an unbiased opinion of how you are that's an unbiased objective measure of how you can like perform in a way.
Yeah. Okay.
I think personally that there's a pretty big disparity between a lot of the scores. I think some things that stick out to me are like the deadlift, where the max is 340 pounds. And I personally think that like me being my size, like I'm 5'3", about 125 pounds, and I don't think I'll ever be able to deadlift 340, like especially just because it's like not something that you normally train for all the time. I also think another disparity is where we have the sprint drag carry and the sled is 90 pounds. That's like about 80% of my body weight. And I think compared to someone who's 200 pounds or maybe like over 6 feet tall, which is a lot of like males in the Army, I think that's kind of like a little bit of an unfair advantage. And I think it kind of sometimes makes like girls kind of feel like a little inferior in a way. So I think it is a little unfair, but it's good that they haven't. Oh yeah, I already forgot. You can crop that.
CT is scored as more fair than the ACFT, but I don't know if it's necessarily like the most fair option. But I think there are differences between like how women can perform in events versus men. So I definitely think there needs to be a different grading scale. But I don't know if the current scale is the best that it could be.
Environment.
I think in the opposite way, it's actually a little more unfair for males because our tabbing time is like their failing time. So I think I've talked to a lot of of my guy friends about this and stuff, and they've definitely thought it's unfair, which I do kind of agree because it is like an obstacle course where not everyone really has like the skills to go through something like that. And of course, like there's plenty of different like body types and people who would be more likely to just pass it easily. But I think that the time being like so different from males and females is kind of like where I do think it's a little unfair, but I think it's a little more unfair like for males.
I think for the IOCT, because that is like very specific for a grading thing at West Point, if you were to, I've heard a lot of guys say that like for the IOCT, like I don't think that there should be such a gap between the guys and the girls' time, or any gap at all, and I don't think that's true, because that's not like a measurement by which you can like get a branch, for example. Like that's just a test that we take here to be scored on. And so I think there does have to be a time difference in there. I don't know if like a minute between tabbing times is necessary. Maybe like 30 seconds, because I've seen girls do like the guys' tabbing time. So it's not that it's not possible for a female to do it, but they're like it's a grading thing for West Point. And so off of that, like for the ACFT, I think that there would be that like as like an objective test is good, but at West Point there needs to be different grading standards.
Okay.
Again, because we get graded on stuff here. It's not just a, hey, take this test to prove that you can still be in the combat arms.
But during summer training, I personally think that I've had experiences with male officers, to be more specific, where they're kind of like judging you a little bit more than other male cadets who I guess are like a little similar to themselves. So I feel like I've definitely been either talked down to or judged, or I guess like thought of as a little less than a male cadet during summer training by a male officer. And I personally think it's not always on purpose, but I do think that it's more of like a subconscious thing where they're kind of favoring people that are a little more like them. So I've definitely felt a little like, I guess you could say ostracized in that way, just based on my gender. But at the same time, I would want to give those people the benefit of the doubt because, I mean, they could just be dealing with like less women in the Army. But I think that's something we really need to like make sure that isn't a problem like in the next couple of years.
I had a sergeant that was actually like in the Army, not a cadet sergeant, and he got kicked out of like our CFT platoon for making like sexist comments to the girls in our platoon. But it was like, it made it difficult. It was like he didn't do it to the guys and they didn't notice that it was like bad. So it was like clearly that there was like an issue that wasn't really being recognized.
I do believe there's a gender gap here at West Point and in the Army in general. An example of what I've seen during CFT, I noticed a lot of the female cadets got asked for help, asked if they needed help rather than spreading it out amongst the whole platoon because everybody was struggling and it looked like they could carry their weight anyway. They looked like they were doing fine.